Coming up on FaceTime.
Oh, well, how old are you? Oh, you're not married?
Yeah.
Well, why don't
What's
you have
wrong?
a boyfriend? What's wrong?
So as they reach 28, 29, 53.7% of women in China believe that they have been left behind.
They've reached a high level in their career and their education that can scare off potential men.
So these are rated the top 3 most beautiful women in China.
She seems like a kind of mutation to a more advanced species than us.
64% of Chinese women believe you should have a house and car.
I don't think it's such a strange requirement. In China, as a married person, you're partly a representative. You're like a spokesperson.
Hi, welcome to FaceTime. Today we're talking about finding love in China. How do you do it? Where do you do it? Why do you do it? Basically, we're making a new show called Weird and Wonderful China. It has 5 parts: food, love, education, health, and work. We've started on love and we realized while researching it, there's so much fascinating and surprising about love in modern day China that we should talk about it. So to help me do that, I've got Joe from England and Angie from Canada. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So you have a Chinese wife?
I'm lucky enough to, yes.
And was that a plan or did it just happen that way?
A lot of people ask me whether I'd be coming home from China with a Chinese wife, and I always laughed and said no, but it's happened that way.
The one is the one.
Yeah, I think so. It's a cliche that Westerners come to China and marry a Chinese woman, but I think this cliche must exist for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
There must be something making it happen, yeah. All right, and you, what is your dating experience here in China?
Dated a few people, but I've never really been seriously involved with anybody in the last few years.
And why do you think that is?
Number of reasons, I guess. Not finding somebody I'm interested in.
Now, people may ask, why bring someone on the show that is not in a relationship and we're talking about love here? But actually,
I asked you the same question.
You represent the majority of foreign girls here who
Yeah,
are not dating Chinese guys. And why is that? Is there a big cultural divide?
I think so. I mean, for one thing, a lot of us aren't looking to get married right away, which is something that's kind of important in China.
For
well,
the Chinese
for Chinese men usually,
Okay.
yeah. And a lot of the time, I think the values are really, really different.
What certain values do you think are different?
Okay, I'm going to be hopefully not too offensive here and say Chinese women tend to be a lot more docile than foreign women be. Well, in public maybe. I've seen your wife be absolutely not docile, so...
Yeah, of course it's not true for everyone.
No, of course, no. I'm making sweeping generalizations here. But what I've found is that foreign women tend to not be as easy to say yes to things, easier to say... No, I don't like. I speak their mind a lot more.
Well,
yeah.
You married to a Chinese girl. Is that true?
I think that Chinese women feel very free to speak their minds in private, and less free to speak their minds in public. I think they're often quite prepared to kind of give their marriage face or to give their husband face in public. But I think Western women are less prepared to play along. They're less prepared to kind of stand on somebody's arm.
So this is something that's going to come out over and over again, is this idea of face, which is quite important in Chinese culture, not only for love, but for many things.
I think that before I agreed to come on this show, I told my wife, Dan has invited me to be on FaceTime to talk about marriage in China. And then there was a pause, and I said, what do you think? And she said, yes, you can do the show.
Yes, you may.
You may do the show. I hadn't really thought I was asking for permission.
Seems like she wears the trousers in the
I think she does. So I think in China, as a married person, you're partly a representative of the family and of the marriage and also of your partner. So you do always have to kind of give face to the marriage and the family
To the partner.
in everything you do. You're like a spokesperson.
Well, I think, as like what you said, that you are part of a family in that way. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine once who said, you know, culture doesn't matter when you get married. And I said, I haven't lived with my parents since I was 17. I'll never live with them again, and I'm not going to live with anyone else's parents.
And that's not going to fly in a
And that's not going to fly in
relationship.
Chinese culture and Chinese relationship, yeah.
Are your wife's parents a big part of your marriage now?
Maybe more than it would in Western culture. Every kind of issue is shared and discussed, whether you want it to or not.
Like coming on a TV show.
Like coming on a TV show, which is great because you get advice from everyone in the family. People volunteer help. but really you kind of lose a bit of privacy within a Chinese marriage.
Do you feel pressure to find a partner?
No, not really.
Because one thing I'm finding over and over again, researching for my show about love, is that many Chinese at a very young age have a lot of pressure to find love.
I've been asked by a lot of my Chinese friends, oh, well, how old are you? Oh, you're not married?
Yeah.
Well, why don't
What's
you have
wrong?
a boyfriend? What's wrong?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, nothing.
And I get the same thing also.
I think there's partly a belief, though, that you should have children before you're 30. A lot of people say that it's dangerous to have children after 30. So if you're not married by 25, how are you going to have children by 30? Yeah, we have a belief that we can have children up to the age of 40 and it will still be safe. So I don't think that you don't feel a biological clock ticking, do you?
Sometimes, but...
But it's
Drink.
not very loud.
It's not very loud.
This means that basically students who've just graduated, they need to find their partner right away. As soon as they've finished studying, they've got to find a job and they've got to find a partner in a hurry.
Well, it depends if they're men or women.
Yeah.
I think men have a little bit more time. And also women don't need to go out and actively look in China. They're expected to not actually actively look.
They're expected for the man's expected to make the move.
find them.
Expected to stand there.
And if a man isn't making a move, I don't know, then you are going to really feel the pressure.
Yeah.
From what I understand of what people have said, it's considered a sign of not being classy if you're being pushy.
So because of this pressure, we have this horrible term here, which is called leftover. Someone being a leftover. Have you heard this before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to illustrate the pressure that a lot of Chinese women are under, here's a graph that was taken off a recent survey
From China's biggest online dating website.
It shows as women get older here, they feel more and more pressure and more of a sense that they've been left behind. So as they reach 28, 29, 53.7% of women in China believe that they have been left behind, that they are no longer really of the right age to be married. Is this what it feels like to you with the woman that you meet here?
Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of them feel a lot of pressure. The sad thing is a lot of them feel the pressure and aren't really happy about it. Like I have a friend who she's been engaged to the same guy for 7 years now, and I was like, well, why aren't you getting married? She goes, because if we get married, we have to have a baby.
Oh, okay.
And I don't want to have a baby yet. So I want to travel, I want to do these things, I want to have a job. So as long as we're going to be married, people
That's
are leaving
fine.
us alone.
I think we also have to look at the reasons why they've reached 28 without marrying in such a traditional society. Often I have friends who've studied abroad where they can't really date looking for marriage, and they've come back to China, or they've been in deep study, and so they've reached a high level in their career and their education that can scare off potential men.
That's true.
And also their families' requirements for their husbands have gone up, even as they've become less desirable. So they see they have to find a great husband to match them, to match their education level, to match their class, but they're dangerously close to being a leftover woman.
Yeah.
And also their eyes have just been opened if they've been exposed to more of the outside world, that I don't just need to get married in my early 20s.
They can also be that, in terms of the challenges Chinese people face, they talk to me about the challenge of buying a car, buying a house before they can get married, of being self-sufficient. Usually a career and education can't actually make them achieve that. They only make them more intimidating and make them feel that they need to find somebody of a higher class who can kind of match them.
And
Their
then-
family pressure increases.
And then the worst part about that is somebody of a higher class probably needs a wife who's going to take a step back, right? And somebody who's that educated, that comfortable in herself probably after that long, is probably not going to be of interest to someone like that.
They're not going to be arm candy.
Pretty much, yeah. They're not going to be arm candy, basically, literally, That have, like, especially when you get into those kind of levels.
Speaking of arm candy, I've got a few photos that I want to show you.
So these are rated the top 3 most beautiful women in China right now. We have her, of course, you know who she is. She is?
Fan Bingbing.
Fan Bingbing, okay. She's known not only in China, all over the world. She's been in many famous movies.
Great shot of her.
Okay, then we have, after her, we have Lin Zhiling. She's Taiwanese. She's also known as the face of Taiwan. And she's very intelligent. She got a double major in Canada, fine arts and economics. I like her because she looks sophisticated. And then the last one, Liu Yifei. She's got that young, cute innocence.
Yeah.
And the country girl look too.
I was going to say the country girl look,
Yeah. Well, actually, many of her roles are playing traditional girls, like in some ancient Chinese film. Usually a kung fu film. So who would you say is the most beautiful?
I have to pick the second one.
I'd have to agree with you too, Dan. Lin Jilin.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You know, I would also say that.
It's the sophisticated aspect. The innocence thing isn't something that in Western culture, it's not generally something that's found super attractive.
Or as attractive as
attractive as sophistication.
I don't know why.
Grace.
I would also say Miss Taiwan over here.
Fan Bingbing has the classic big eyes, long
the
face,
doe deer in a
very tall as well, I think. Yeah, she seems like a kind of mutation to a more advanced species than us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great endorsement there.
Yeah. Or not a great endorsement.
I think you said something nice.
I think I maybe
really
said
nice.
something nice.
But okay.
Yeah.
So,
for example, I really think Xi Jinping's wife. Have you seen pictures of her?
You like her because she's fashionable too.
She's so classy looking, though, right? She's beautiful.
Yeah.
To me, is really beautiful. She's classy. She's sophisticated.
Can you guess who in China is rated #1?
I'd guess for the third one, probably.
I'd guess the first Fan Bingbing.
It's the third one, Liu Yifei. And then #2, Lin Jilin. And then #3, Fan Bingbing. Surprisingly.
Ah, Fan Bingbing's
moving down in
she's moving
popularity.
down. She's hit her expiry date.
Oh, don't say that. Leftover.
Face has
The
gone
leftover,
down.
yeah.
She is married, right? I
I
assume
have
so.
no idea.
No idea.
Well, we've got to find out whether or not she's married. All
Is
right.
this important to you, Dan?
This is very important. Very, very important. We've seen a little bit now what the Chinese look for in a woman. Well, actually, if that's what the Chinese look for, then call me Chinese. But what do we look for? What do you look for in a partner?
Intelligence. Someone who's strong. Not like strong like strength, but I mean like strong in a personality, somebody who doesn't need to prove anything.
I think passion and an appetite for life and for trying things, for experiencing new things, I think that's very, very attractive.
Yeah.
Most of the Chinese women I've talked to are looking for something different. They're looking for stability, not love. Generally, when you're talking about a marriage, they look for stability.
Would you agree?
I disagree with his wife, but
my wife isn't like that, but she tells me I'm lucky. Her whole family tell me I'm lucky.
Her whole
in a
family
very
is like,
pointed way.
Good job, well done.
Yeah.
You're
You're
lucky.
Yeah.
There's a new survey that came out that says 64% of Chinese women believe you should have a house and car to have a serious relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of Chinese people say that one of the most important criteria for choosing a partner is their background. And what's background if it doesn't mean family? If it doesn't mean how rich somebody's family is? Although most of these young people can't buy a house and a car by themselves,
Their family
this
could.
proves how supportive their family are of them. This proves sort of like how good their relationship with their family is. This proves the wealth of their family. So I don't think it's such a strange requirement, given the importance of family together.
I think in Western countries sometimes we also want a little bit of, we want to know that our partner can support us in a way.
We tend to look at somebody's personality. Like if my dad was looking at somebody I was going to marry, he wouldn't say, what do you have? He'd say, what are you like? Are you hardworking? Are you driven? Are you going to make her happy?
That's actually what my Chinese father-in-law said.
There you go. Yeah,
he said I had potential.
So
he
you
has
have
a
potential.
Western.
he has
a Western
view of
mind,
it,
a Western view.
So we're talking about, okay, getting committed and finding a partner. What was your experience of getting married?
I got married in China first, in the Chinese registry office. I had a dinner for my Chinese family where I sort of poured tea out for them. I don't think this was a very traditional experience. It was far more informal. But before I got married...
But giving tea is quite traditional.
Yeah, and it's quite subservient too. As a man entering the family, we usually talk in England about giving away a wife. But then sort of paying your respects to your father-in-law, mother-in-law, and I asked their permission beforehand.
Okay.
What felt quite like a job interview. Yeah.
What sort of questions did you get?
Questions about like my future, my plans, how well I actually knew my now wife, sort of like what I thought her faults even were. So like to check that I really knew her, I was really passionate about her, which luckily I passed, very luckily.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then we got married in England too. So my Chinese in-laws were able to join in an English wedding, which was a blessing service in England.
What did they think of that?
Well, it was a church wedding, and in China I think they have a very romanticized view of a church wedding. Yeah, they don't see how chaotic our weddings can be.
It looks so peaceful in the movies.
Yeah. Also,
Serene,
if you think...
beautiful, and everything's white.
Well, the camera cuts in on the church, and it cuts out the fact that there's a graveyard around the church, which in China isn't a very good thing. Yeah, as I found out from talking to them then. And if you think of the aisle going up a church, often they actually have bones interred in the aisle as people walk up in English churches, which I decided it was better not to mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sorry for mentioning it now. Yeah.
I figured it was good not to mention it at the time. Instead, I'm going to put it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't put
Mention it to
subtitles
everyone.
on this, do you?
Well, I think we do.
Ah, great.
Just make sure the parents are distracted in their broadcast.
No, but I think they really enjoyed participating in something so special. But it must have seemed very chaotic, particularly also the way that lots of relatives almost lived together for a few days, organising a Western wedding, whereas everything seems far more professional in a Chinese wedding that I've been to.
But another thing which struck me, I recently went to a wedding as part of researching for our show, and although the Chinese are not very religious, there are a lot of superstitions attached to weddings. When you get married is very important, the year. So what year were you married in, and was that significant?
It wasn't a significant one, but when we were discussing which year to get married, one of the things that came up was not stealing the thunder of other relatives who were getting married, and also not appearing disrespectful to a relative who died. So I think this can actually be a big factor. We discussed the date of the actual official registration of the marriage to find an auspicious date.
Yeah, you have to find a lucky date. Yeah, what was the auspicious date? Oh my God, we just asked him what his wedding anniversary is.
It was the 19th of May.
Oh, good job.
19th of May.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I don't know why it's auspicious, and nobody could explain exactly why it was auspicious.
It can be very small things. I recently went to a wedding that was on the 9th day of the month, and Jiu in Chinese means longevity, a long time. So they really, I mean, that was important for them to have it on the 9th day, because it shows, it was proving to them that their marriage was going to last a long time.
Yeah. But I think a lot of these traditions can be used to justify anything they'd quite like to do. I've heard of Chinese friends like justifying a decision not to get married in a certain year because of it being inauspicious.
For example, this year, the year of the snake, has far fewer weddings than many other years.
Yeah, so this tradition can be a very good way of saving face if maybe you didn't want to get married this year.
Maybe finances are tight, let's wait a year or two for an auspicious one.
Maybe I'm not sure about who I'm marrying, let's wait a year or two.
Let's not say that.
Yeah.
So now you've been married for how long?
I've been married for nearly 3 years now.
And you plan on staying here in China, or are there plans to
Are you planning on staying married?
I plan on...
No.
Dad!
I'm not going to ask that.
For the record, I do plan on staying married.
Okay.
Now, I plan on emigrating this year, hopefully.
Okay.
A lot of people do kind of assume that emigrating would be easy after marrying, but it's not as easy as it used to be nowadays. It's a very difficult and long process, which really tests how committed you are to doing it together.
And then she has to go through all the difficulties that you went through getting used to a different culture back in your country.
There's a very different way of getting used to Chinese culture. You get used to Chinese culture as a guest, as somebody who's assumed not to know anything. I think in the West you get used to English culture as somebody who's assumed to be very, very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for FaceTime today. Be sure to check out our series, Weird and Wonderful China. The first episode is about love. Until next time, bye-bye.